In this tutorial, I want to show you how to assemble the presentation drawings, how to put them together using external references of your plan and your site plan and border and elevation. So all of that. So you're going to get started with a brand new drawing here. So you'll go ahead and click on the three bars and just say start new drawing here. And actually what I want to do is use a template, my HWC template. So I thought I'd find it there, but I'm not. So I'm just going to click on start and I'm going to click on the new drop down. I'm going to use my HWC template. Please make sure that you remain on layer 0 at all times, especially when you are bringing in your external references. Please keep that in mind. And it doesn't matter if your drawings are complete yet. You can still assemble the presentation files, continue to add content and update your drawings, and the XREFs will also update. So here's my new drawing. Make sure that you save this as indicated in the instructions. So I'm going to do a save as on mine, and I'll be saving mine right now. And it's always going to be the first initial last name. And in this case, again, verify with the requirements, but I believe this one is going to be presentation plans. And I do want to make sure that I spell it right and use the upper and lowercase as I should. So presentation plans, I'll go ahead and click save. You'll see I have nothing drawn on here, and I'm going to draw very little in these presentation files. Again, the goal is to assemble them right now. So this is model space, and in model space, what I would like to do is bring in my plans, my site plan and my floor plan. So I'm going to type XR, enter. From here, I'm going to click on the attach DWG icon. And then I'm going to look for my floor plan, my X plan. So first initial, last name. I'm going to go with my X site, and then I'll bring the plan in just a moment. So X site, click open. And everything looks good here. Scale is 1 to 1. Yes, I could bring this in at 0, 0. There's nothing else on this drawing. That's fine to start with. For the path type, make sure you set this to no path. All of your XREFs should be in the same folder. No rotation, and then I'll go ahead and click OK. Now, remember when I start a new drawing file, I'm zoomed in pretty close, and this is a big drawing. So if I slowly start to zoom out, you'll see there's the site plan. So I'm going to zoom extents, so Z enter, E enter, and this is my site plan. Now, the floor plan should have come in with it. And I'm going to double check and see what's going on here with that. So first of all, I'm going to go over to XREFs. And I'm going to see that it has a plan loaded, but it is not the right plan. So one thing I forgot to do before I made some modifications was to go over here to my site plan and save it. So Control S to save. And then I'll go back to my presentation plans. I'm going to get a notification at the bottom telling me that I need to reload, but I'm not going to compare because I know what changes I made. So click on reload, and there's the plan. And then I'm going to look at my XREFs, and everything looks good. And I'm noticing that I have the border around here. And if you do not, that's great. But I do, so I'm just going to type in the X clip frame. And I need to type that properly. So XClip frame, I'm going to set that to 0 and enter. All right, so that's my site plan. And then I'm also going to do a presentation floor plan. So I might as well bring that floor plan in. And you might say to yourself, well, it's already there. Yes, but what I'm going to do is show you some techniques here. And you may decide later on to do things a different way, which is completely acceptable because you can use AutoCAD in so many ways, different ways. But I just want to show you some techniques. So I'll go back to my external references, and from here I'm going to click on Attach DWG. and I'm going to look for my floor plan. So X plan and open. In this instance, I do not want it to go at 0, 0, so I'm going to click specify on screen. So I'll be able to place it. And the relative path needs to be changed to no path. And then I can go ahead and click OK. And I'm just going to float it over here on the side. And it doesn't matter where you place it. It doesn't even have to align. So please note what's going on here. I'm going to go to the XREFs for just a moment. I brought in the site plan, and the site plan has the floor plan nested inside of it. So XSite has XPlan nested, but I can also bring in XPlan separate, and I have you could say the two different versions of it, if you will, but it's the same image. It's just that one image is nested within another. It's all. So that's step one, getting my models, my images of my models into model space. And now I'm going to switch over to Paperspace, which is the layout. So I'm going to go to layout one, and I'm going to give that a click. And when I do that, by default, AutoCAD is loading a specific paper size, and it also creates this viewport, this floating model space viewport, but I don't want to use that. So I'm just going to click on that and delete it. I'll show you how to make your own viewport in just a moment here. Now, all of this needs to print at or onto a sheet that is 11 by 17, and we will figure out the scale in a minute here. But I need to change my paper to an 11 by 17 format. To do that, you come down here to where it says Layout 1, you right click, and then you go to Page Setup Manager. In Page Setup Manager, it's going to show you that you have Layout 1 there. So I need to click on Modify. And when I do this dialog box, but it's similar, it's the Page Setup Manager. So from here, I'm going to select a printer, and the printer is going to be the AutoCAD PDF General Documentation. And the paper size will be 11 by 17, or rather 17 by 11 full bleed. If I pick 11 by 17 here, that's fine. I would just have to change the orientation. So I can just go 17 by 11, and orientation is already set for me. What we're going to plot is going to be the extents of this sheet. We're going to center it, and the scale is going to be 1:1. So right now, the preview, there's nothing to preview, so it's just defaulting to this generic preview. But as soon as I bring in my border, you'll see what will happen here. Plot style table, I don't need to assign one now. I can always do that when it comes time to print. So I'll skip that for the moment, and I'll go ahead and click OK. And then I'll go ahead and close the Page Setup Manager. Now that I have an 11 by 17 sheet, I will now externally reference my border. So going over to my external references, click on the attached DWG icon, and I'm going to look for my border, and then click open. And I do want my border to be placed at 0, 0. I'm going to change the path to no path. Scale stays the same. Reference type is attachment, and I go ahead and click OK. Notice what will happen, and this has been happening for a long time with AutoCAD. It's okay. You did place the border in here at the correct coordinates, but it's not lining up with the sheet. Here's what you need to do. You need to go back to Layout 1. You need to right-click it. You need to go into Page Setup Manager and then modify this page layout. And all you need to do, or at least what I've been doing, is I turn off center the plot, and then I turn it back on. And this basically resets the sheet, resets the plot area. And then I click OK. And then I can close this. And just like that, it's fixed. And I'm going to zoom extents. Now to proceed, I have my border in layout one, paper space, and I have my site and my plan in model space. So I'm going to go back to layout one and I need to create a viewport. But what I'll do is go to layer properties manager and I'm going to click on new layer. And to make things a little bit easier here, I'm going to click on all non-XREF layers. That way it hides the other layers. And then I'm going to click on new. And this new layer, I'm going to call it MView and enter. And then I'm going to take that layer. Let me just expand this a little bit. There we go. All right. So that's my new layer. I'm going to click on the color swatch and I'm going to make it color red just so I can see it on the screen and then click OK. And then I'm also going to set this layer to do not plot. In other words, I want to see it on the screen, but I do not want to see it in the preview. And then I'm going to make that my current layer. Notice how I'm making this layer after I've brought in my external references. Sometimes it happens where students will make this layer first and then bring in their XREFs and the XREFs sit on this layer. And then when the XREFs don't print, they don't realize what's going on and it's just on the wrong layer. So all your XREFs need to be on layer 0. All right, that's all set. Now to continue. To create my own viewport, I'm going to type in MView. And I do this on purpose so that the layer name and the command match. So MView, enter. And I'm going to make a viewport. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. And I'm going to do this on purpose, or I'm going to make the viewport bigger than the sheet, like this. Only because I want to show you that it's possible. You don't have to just limit it to the sheet because you can resize later. Now that I have the viewport in place, I want to go into my model space like this. And then I want to pan and center the site plan within my viewport. Then I want to set the scale of this viewport because every architectural drawing that you assemble has to be based on a scale. So I'm going to come over here to my scales, focusing on the architectural scales. And I know that the scales here at full size is just not going to make it. This is half size. This is 3 inches equals a foot. So I have to start with the smaller scales. So I'm going to click on 1/8 inch and see where that takes me. And that's showing me the building on the site, but not the full property. And we need to see the full property. But I can always bring my um, view over. I can pan it to see if it would fit, and it's not going to. So I go back to my scale here, and I'm going to go one scale smaller, a 3/32 scale. And at 3/32, I'm picking up the entire property. I do also want to have the trees, the streets, the sidewalk, as much as I can. Not all of it is necessary, but this is a good scale. So 3/32 will be the scale. Then the next thing to do is lock it in place so that it doesn't accidentally change if we're zooming in and out in floating model space. So lock it. And now notice how it's all set. And I can double click outside of paper space like this. And then I can take that viewport, select it, and I'm going to click and drag it in. And I'm going to turn off ortho. I'm also going to turn off my object snaps. They're already off. That's good. And I'm also going to turn off tracking because when it comes time to put in these viewports, you don't want it to snap to anything. You want this to be as free as possible. So I'll do that there. I'm going to do this here. And I may have to come back later and make some modifications because there's still some annotations to add. But right now it's just about setting up the sheets. Now, I don't need to see all of the properties, um, north and south. So I can make this a little bit smaller here and then also tighten things up a little bit there. Or if I wanted to, let's see, I can move this viewport. I'm going to type M, enter, and I'm going to move it up like this. And then if I do decide I want to bring this down, may not work. I don't know yet. I'll just leave it at that for now because I still need to add a title. So we'll see what works. But I'm just trying to show you how you can manipulate and control the size of this viewport. And then I'll go ahead and tap the escape key. And then if by accident I was inside the floating model space viewport, I'm going to double click into it like this. If I type zoom extents, so Z enter, E enter, you notice how it zoomed the extents of paper space. And that's because the viewport is locked. So I'm going to come back out, double click outside of it. And this is going to be the viewport that is now set. The next thing to do here, notice how my property line, if I go to model space, I can see the property line and I can also see the dash lines in my floor plan. But when I go to my layout, they're not there. And this is because you need to make a couple of changes. So you need to type in the following: MSLT scale. This is model space line type scaling. Enter and set that to 0. Turn it off and enter. That means you're not allowing model space to control the line type scale. And then the next thing you're going to type in is PSLT scale and also set that to 0 so that paper space line type scaling is not applicable. Still don't see any changes, and that's because we need to do one more command here, and that is the regen all. So you need to type REA and enter. Now all of the line weights or line types are coming in as they should to the appropriate scale. And if I zoom in here, a little hard to see because the background is now all white, but I do see the dashed lines. Okay, and then I'm going to zoom extents, and I could have been in model space or paper space. And because I locked down my floating model space, it worked out. So that sets up my site plan, my presentation site plan. The next view I want to put together or assemble is going to be my floor plan view. Before I continue, Control S to save. All done. And instead of clicking on Layout 2 and doing this all over again from scratch, I'm going to do something different here. I'm going to right-click Layout 2, or actually, yeah, right-click it and delete it. And I can go ahead and click OK. Just so you know, by default, AutoCAD will always need to have one layout present, so you'll never be able to delete both of them. So that's all done. Then the next thing we're going to do is right-click on Layout 1, and I'm going to click on Move or Copy. When I click on Move or Copy, this window comes up, and I'm going to say Move or Copy. It says Before Layout, and I'm going to click on Move to the End, and I'm going to say Create a Copy. And then I'm going to click OK. So now I have two layouts that look exactly the same. And the reason I did this is because I already had my viewport set up. I already had my border in there and everything was all set. So I didn't have to drop in the extra for the border again. The only thing I have to do now is make some modifications to the existing viewport. And before I do that, I just want to make sure that I don't get these two confused. So I am going to right-click Layout 1, and I'm going to rename it. And I'm going to rename this and call it Site Plan. Enter. And then this one, I'm going to click in there. Looks the same. And then I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to rename that. And this one is going to be Floor Plan. Or I'll just call it Plan for now. And enter. Now, I can go ahead and modify the plan layout. So I'm going to double click in the viewport. I want to pan over to see what's next to my site plan, which is the plan all by itself. But when I do that, you'll notice how it's panning everything, and that's because this viewport is locked. So I'm going to unlock the viewport and then just double click inside of the view. Looks like I'm already there. And then just pan over. Let me tap the escape key and pan this over. And if you need to zoom out to find the floor plan, place it in the center of this viewport and then select a scale. Now, the last scale that I used was 3/32. And at 3/32, that was showing me the whole site. But now I really want to focus on my floor plan. So what I'm going to do is change that scale again. And let's see if 1/8 inch is the appropriate scale. And it looks like I can go bigger than an 1/8 inch. So I'm going to try 3/16. That looks good. I'm going to try 1/4 inch. And 1/4 inch also works. So it's going to be between 1/4 inch and 3/16, but I know that I need to add some annotations, some dimensions, and a title coming up. So I'm going to leave it at 3/16 for now. And if I need to, I'll make changes later. Depending on your floor plan, you may go with 1/4 inch or go with 3/32. You'll make that decision. Um, and either one is going to be fine. So now that I have the scale locked in, I can go ahead and lock that viewport. And then if I wanted to, I can pan. I could have panned before I locked it down, but if I didn't, it's easy enough to double click outside of it, take that viewport, and you can make it a little bit smaller like this. And then you can type M, enter, and just move it around wherever you want on that sheet. I'll move it again, and I want to place it somewhere in the center. And just so you know, as a reminder, I turned off my object snaps because I didn't want it to pick any endpoints or intersections. And I also turned off ortho, and I also turned off my polar tracking. And this is what I typically do when I'm putting together my presentation drawings. So this is all set. I now have both ready to go, and the next thing to do here is going to be adding some annotations, but that'll come later. I'm going to do a Control S to save, and I just want to double check the names here because when it comes time to print these out, it's going to take on the name of the tab. So it's going to give me my first initial last name, presentation plans dash site plan, and then it's going to say presentation plans dash plan. So I think I want to change this to floor plan just so I don't get too confused here. So I'm going to rename that, and I'll just type in floor plan and enter. So that takes care of this drawing altogether. I can close it out, and then I'm going to be starting my elevation. So one thing I could do with the elevation is actually take this presentation plan and do a save as. And I think I want to show you how to do that because if you wanted to set up the elevation presentation drawing from scratch, you certainly can do that, but you'd have to go through and set up your sheets and set up your layouts and create the MView layer, which is not something that I would recommend you do. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to close out my presentation plans, save my changes, yes. And then I'm going to go back and open my presentation plans. And they should be listed in here. There they are. And I'm going to click open. Actually, no, let me show you what I'm going to do. Sorry about that, because I want to save you any issues down the road. I'll click open, and it's showing the presentation plans. I'm going to be using this, and I'm going to be saving it as something else, but just in case I were to accidentally save over it, I would never want to do that, and I would regret it. I'm going to select the name of the file, and then I'm going to come over here to the drop down, and I'm going to say open read only. And when I do that, if I were to accidentally save or click on save like this, save, it gives me the message that the drawing file is write protected. So I'd never run into the issue of overwriting it. So I'll click OK. And now I'm going to type save as. And when I save as, it already has my first initial last name, and it already has presentation, and I just need to change the name here from plans to elevation. And I should just go upper lowercase like that and click save. That's all set. And again, I just saved myself a few minutes. And the next thing I want to do is unload or detach the two XREFs that I have in there. So I'm going to go to model space and I'm going to zoom extents, go over to my external references. If you don't have it docked at the side, just type XR and enter. And I'm going to first select the, let's see, I'll take the site plan. I'm going to right click it and I'm going to say detach it. In other words, no connection whatsoever. Remove it. I still have the floor plan in there. There it is. So back to my external references, plan, right click, and detach. You never erase or delete XREFs because the path and the path is going to remain there. So always detach. And I didn't unload because unloading means I want to bring it back later, and that's not ever going to be the case. All right, that's all set. I'm going to zoom extents again. I have no idea how far it zoomed me in, but I'm going to continue. Now, very, very important here. I'm still on my MView layer. That's the last layer I used. And if I accidentally stay on this layer and I bring in my elevation, it's not going to print because I've set this layer to do not plot. So please set layer 0 as your current layer. Then bring in your XREF. So I'll go to my external references. I click on my attached DWG icon and I'm looking for my X elevation. And right now my names are out of order, so I'm going to click on name. And notice how it gives me the names in the order that I need them. And anything with an X in front of it basically means I am going to externally reference it. So there's the elevation. And I'll go ahead and click open. Reference type is an attachment for now. And then the insertion point 0. And the path is going to be no path. And then I can go ahead and click OK. So there it is, and it did zoom me in pretty close, so I'm going to zoom out. It's going to take a while, so I'm going to type Z, enter, E, enter to zoom extents. So there is my floor plan, or rather my elevation. When I go to my external references, you'll see that it is also bringing in the site, or rather the floor plan, but I didn't save, so let me do something here. I'm going to go to my X elevation. I'm going to do a Control S to save. I'm going to go back to my elevations here. It's going to reload it. There it is. There's the floor plan that it's bringing in. Now, this is okay. This will happen. There's about 2 or 3 different ways you can deal with this. One way is to X clip the XREF, but if I X clip it, I might be clipping my um, entourage here, my trees. So I'm not going to do that. That's one option. Second option is to go back into the elevation like this. And from the elevation, I go to my external references and I can right click and I can unload like that. And when I unload and I save, Control S, I can go back to my elevation, presentation elevation, let it update. And did it go away? No, I thought it would have. That's all right. We'll skip that option. I don't know what I was thinking. And we're going to go with this option. I'm going to go back to the elevation. I'm going to go to my external references, and I guess unloading it didn't make a difference, so I'm going to reload it. And it's back. And what I'm going to do now is in my external references with that plan selected, I'm going to change the type. Instead of it being an attachment, I'm going to click on the drop down and make it an overlay. Here's why. As an overlay, it is only existing in this drawing file because I've overlaid it here. And if I overlay it only here, that means I'm not going to see it if I externally reference this elevation elsewhere. So I'm going to save this, Control S, and then I'm going to go back to my presentation elevation, and I'm going to reload. And when I reload, it disappears. There, it may show up, and here it is. When I select my XREF, because this is nested in there, it's still showing me a preview of that XClip boundary. And that's fine. I'll tap the escape key, but at least it's out of sight, out of mind, and I can focus on just my elevation. So this is good. And again, what I did is in my elevation here, I just made sure that I was bringing in the plan, and the plan, I changed it to an overlay. So if you know that in advance, you can set it to overlay right away, but it doesn't matter when you change it. You have full control over it. So I'll go back to the elevation now. And remember, I was on layer 0, and if you need to, click on that elevation, check the properties. Yes, it's an external reference, and yes, the layer is 0. Always double check that. All right, the next thing to do here is my tabs. I have a site plan and I have a floor plan. And it doesn't matter which one I use. If I use the site plan, great, because I already have it in view and I still have to modify the scale. If I use floor plan, I can just double click in here, uh, unlock it, and then zoom out, place it in the middle of the screen, and then set the scale. So it doesn't matter which one I use. But because the first one was already set to go, I'm going to use that. So I'll go back to my site plan. And then just so I don't make any mistakes here, I'm going to right click and delete this one. I'm going to click OK. And then instead of this being the site plan, I'm going to click on it, right click, and rename it from site plan to elevation and enter. And then go into the viewport, double click inside of it. I'm going to unlock it and center this on the screen because this is going to be the only thing on the screen. And this is not the right scale because there's too much empty space, so there's a lack of balance. It's starting to look like a postage stamp on a letter. We don't want that. So instead of 3/32, I'm going to adjust this and see if I can set it to 1/8 inch, and that's better. And if I want to, I can try 3/16, and that might work. And it's okay if the trees are getting cropped. What matters most here is the elevation of your building. Um, and I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring in the properties on either side, the buildings. But I'll do that in just a a little later, perhaps in a different tutorial. But I just wanted to set up the views here. And if 3/16 is going to work, I believe that's also the scale of my presentation plans. Let me double check for a second. Going to come up here to, no, I'll go to start. And it was one of the files I had open a second ago. So I'll open up my presentation plans. There's the floor plan. Double click inside of it, and it is 3/16. So we always try to match the scale of the plan and the elevations. So 3/16, let me double click outside of that, go to my elevations, and that's also set to 3/16. So I'm going to keep that. And the location where I have it in terms of the height, I can just pan it up or down, but I don't want it to go too high, and I also don't want it to be too low. So find something that's appropriate, and it's okay that there's a bit of emptiness here for what we're doing. So I'll leave it at that, and then I will lock this down. And then double click outside of the floating model space viewport, and then zoom extends here. And that is all set. So this is how you set up your views, for your presentation drawings. Everything has been XREF'd, and if we look at the layers, we've only created one layer. This layer has been there for a while, and I'll explain that later when it comes time to drop in some annotations. But this is it. In my case, my project title, I have a couple of instances here, and I left them there on purpose because I want to show you how I can click on the XREF. I can right click it. I can go to Open XREF. And let's say I want to keep the project title down in the middle here. And this is the one that I don't want. So I'll select it and delete. And then I will zoom extends just out of habit. And then Control S to save. And then I'll go back to my presentation plans. Tells me that the project title has changed. And I don't need to compare the changes because I know what they are. I'll reload it. Zoom extends. All set in this view. All set in this view. Go back to my presentation elevation. This also needs to be updated. And if you accidentally click on the X here, you can always go to the external references. There's the border. Right click it and reload here. Done. And then zoom extends out of habit. And I have these views all set up. And then the last thing I'll say is this. Sometimes when you have gone into your drawing files, like let's say I go into my plan view over here, when you hover over it, notice how it's always showing you the different tabs, model space and tool layouts. Well, now if I hover over this tab for my presentation plans, let me click on that so it's active. I hover over it. Now you can see that I can open it directly into model space. I can open it directly into one of my two layouts. And let's say I click here and it should take me there. If I go to my elevations, I can click here. It'll take me straight to model space. So that's the reason for those small thumbnails to pop up. Okay, this sets up the sheets, but there are still some annotations to add, and then there are still some maybe the buildings here to add, and also then printing. But this gets everything set up, and you can continue to model everything to draw, and the XREFs will update. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks.